James's standpoint in the Huckleberry Finn story, the enslaved person. We got together, we talked about it so much that we left out of here without picking our next book for the next time. So that's what we're going to do today. But then I got to thinking, I said, you know what? Let's get together and as we're deciding what we're going to talk about for our next book, let's talk about what our dads meant to us. Talk about fatherhood and what that meant, and said, hey, let's just kind of have that discussion. And then I encourage, the brothers to invite somebody. So that's what all of this is. We're just going to kind of talk about what our dads meant to us, right, wrong, or indifferent, and what it did to shaping us as men, the men that we become. So that's basically what we're going to do today. There's no, how would I put it, no rules to this thing. Just sharing open and honest feelings about, what your father meant to you. So that's all that is. There's another young man coming in that works with me. I'll let him grab that chair. Come on in, Terrence Graham. Have a seat right there. Have a seat. Come on in. And that's what this is, what we're going to do today. Make sense? Fair enough. How you doing, man?
How you doing, sir?
All right. Come on in. He just worked the night shift. Hopefully you got a little bit of rest. You didn't? Okay. I was just basically talking about, our book club and what we do and, why we're here today and that. Mr. Slim is from Portsmouth Coffee Talk podcast. He's going to tape this. Does anybody have a problem with that? Does anybody have a problem with that? Terrence Graham, you got a problem with that? No, sir. Okay. Anybody got a problem? All right. You, Little William, AJ, you got a problem? The school police ain't looking for you, are they? No, good. Okay, well, good. There you go. He's going to put it on, it's going to be on YouTube, Slim?
Yeah.
You okay with that, Randall, or?
Yeah,
You sure?
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Gotcha. All right, I'm gonna find me another chair, and then we're gonna go ahead and get rolling. Slim, how about put the close sign on there? Because we're gonna be here all day, and if customers come, they can come back after we, get done. So just flip it over. See the sign right there to your left? Yeah, just flip it over to close. There you go. Because we're in the middle of the book crawl week, and people been coming in and out here all week, which is a good thing for me. I'm making some money. I can keep the doors open, but we can have a little time to ourselves. So, let me see. Slim, you got a chair?
Yeah, I'll be fine.
You can check my son's chair. I can go back there.
Yeah, get. Keep going. Thanks.
Another chair right here. There you go, yeah. Why y'all so quiet? Everybody so quiet. Where you want me to sit, Slim?
Any way you want to. I got everybody in focus here.
Gotcha.
Before you get started, I just want to tell the audience, welcome. This is Slim from the Portsmouth Coffee Talk, and we have men in here and a few youngsters that we're going to talk, and a young lady that we're going to talk about the relationship with our fathers. So stay tuned, pay attention. You might be able to relate to some of the things you hear. It's important, especially in our communities. We need to have those discussions. So, all right, we can start whenever you are ready.
All right, I'll go ahead and open it up. Let me make sure my phone is off now with no disruption. All right, I'm Terrence. I'm originally from South Carolina. Grew up in Cleveland. Joined the Navy at 17 and been going ever since. How would I put it? The Navy has been great to me. As a result of being in the Navy, if I would have never been in the Navy, I'd have never met none of y'all here in the room, because that means I would have been home back in Cleveland, and I don't know what I would have been doing. It's funny. My father encouraged me to leave. Well, he drew a line in the sand with me, basically. him and my mom both were college educated people. My father was a social worker, slash probation officer. My mother was a teacher. They both were college grads. My father was a Q. My mother is still an active AKA. So they were products of HBCUs, high on education, and pushed it with me and my sister. But my father was a smart man. He knew in high school that I wasn't college material. So he made it clear. He said, "Hey, you gotta figure something out. I'd love to send you to school, but you're not gonna waste my money. And as soon as you graduate, you're gonna be out of here. So you better figure something out. Peace Corps, Marine Corps, or something. You gotta do something. You ain't just gonna be hanging around here." And I really had a problem with that, but I was a kid. I didn't know any better. But now as a man, I understand where he was coming from, and I appreciated it. So at 17, I joined and made a career in the Navy, and then from the Navy on to still working with sailors and Marines as I do, and over here hanging out with my wife at this bookstore. So I thank God for my father. He was very instrumental, in my upbringing. Although I didn't appreciate him then as a kid, I did not appreciate him one bit because I thought he was hard on me and, didn't allow me to do stuff that I wanted to do. A lot of those guys that I hung out with, a lot of them are locked up right now or gone or, some terrible things happened to them. So, I appreciate, him. Although again, I didn't understand it or care for it at that time, but I appreciate, what he did and, made me go. And I remember when I retired from the Navy, my father was there, my church was there, the captain of the ship, my sailors, all of that. And that was the very first time in my life that I felt proud that I made my father proud, and he had told me before then, "Hey man, I've been proud of you." But that was the first time I really, really got that feeling of, making my dad proud. I have a son, he's a knucklehead. I love him, but I'm not proud of him. But then again, I sleep good at night because I taught him and gave him everything that my old man did. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't the perfect father, but again, I sleep well at night because I gave the same delivery to my son that my old man did to me, and if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a bit. My son often tells me, he said, "Dad, I wish I'd have listened to you." And I said, "Well, hey, man, I didn't always listen to my father, you know." So that's just how it goes. But that's kind of my story in a nutshell. So that's me. Fathers are important. Men are important. I was blessed growing up not only to have my father in my life, but both grandfathers and several uncles. So that's one of the reasons why I give to kids and help out with kids because I had somebody, well, I had examples always, growing up of men, pushing me in the right direction, pointing me in the right direction. So that's why I try to give back to kids as much as I can because somebody gave it to me. And not only, from my immediate family, but when I joined the Navy, I had these, they had these people called Navy Chiefs. And I had guys that I still call to this day on Father's Day thanking them. Because when I was a young sailor, I had guys that didn't have to, but, pushed me and encouraged me in the right direction, And Larry Jr. kind of comes in, and that way his father, and I'm sure he'll talk, his father was a giant. I mean, he was a giant. His father was a mentor to me as a young sailor and as a young man, kind of, growing up in the church and being around the church and doing things. His father was always, giving me the same thing that, my old man gave me. So, again, hopefully he'll talk about it because, again, like I said, his father was a giant. He was. So, again, men are important, and that's why we do certain things around here with kids, here, through my bookstore, through reading and all kind of stuff. So that's my story. That's my story. That's it. Anybody else?
I can talk about my father a little bit.
Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, growing up in well, my name is Randall. My name is Randall. Growing up in Washington, D.C., my father was very similar in my life, too. Unfortunately, I lost my biological mother when I was 8 years old. But my father, he was very big on education for one thing. I could not bring home a bad report card. He would get on my case big time if I brought home anything. I mean, he even frowned on the sea. He didn't like that. So for the most part, I had to decent grades in school, and I joined the Coast Guard at about age 22. Did just about 30 years in the Coast Guard, 29 years, 8 months. So just about 30 years in the Coast Guard. Got to see a lot of the world and everything, and even in the Coast Guard, my father was still in my life, giving me pointers here and there, pushing me to make rank and all that kind of good stuff. And always had a place to come home to if I needed to, or whenever I took leave or anything like that. I can even go as far as to say, because my father, he was in National Guard himself. So I knew a little bit about the military before I even joined the Coast Guard, just through watching him. And I can even go as far as to say, coming up, I think I was a little bit spoiled. I pretty much got what I wanted. Not that I wanted big things or anything, but my older brother, he was already out of the house, so I was the only kid at home. So it wasn't too hard for my parents to provide my needs and also a lot of my wants. So I was blessed to have a father as well that was very instrumental and very much a part of my life. Helping me make decisions as I go along, as I went along in life. I never got into any real trouble. Because back in my day, you got spanked pretty good. If you disobedient to your parents,
Yeah.
all that kind of good stuff. I knew better because I knew what was coming. I didn't block it. So in that sense, I think I was blessed to have a father that was very involved in my life from my early age up until my time into the military. So my experience in D.C., a lot of people say that boys are more closer to their mothers, but I was actually more closer to my father. He was not only a father, he was actually a friend as well. So just want to share that blessing with everybody.
Randall, most of those cats you grew up with in D.C., where are they right now? Most of your years and cats that you grew up with.
Unfortunately, a lot of them are not with us today.
Right.
But, some of them have done time and gotten out.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them got caught up in that 80s crack dilemma that DC had.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, a lot of them are not around today. I still have some friends back in DC that I keep in contact with. They're the ones who made it.
Right.
But a lot of them didn't make it.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, let me ask the question, and then everybody can kind of respond to it. Excuse me. Or you can start off with your history like this. But we hear a lot about the presence of fathers and sometimes the absence of fathers. Now, a lot of fathers had different ways that they dealt with their sons and their families. Some of them, I had a friend of mine, his dad used to kiss him, which was weird to us when we were growing up. But they end up having a great relationship, and he respected women. And some men just didn't even relate that way to their sons. How important was it to you to have, because a lot of us don't realize how important our fathers were in our life, or the things they told us, how important it was until we get much older. Because as a teenager, we be listening, oh, what do you know?
Right.
So how important was it to you having that relationship with your father early on? And yeah, and that's the question. And like I said, if you want to start out with the commentary about your father, you can do that first. But keep that question in mind, because I think all of us had a different kind of relationship with our fathers. Some of it was good, some of it was strange, but they were our fathers, and a lot of times we can end up like them, even though we might resist it, depends on how they were. But how important was it to you guys having an early relationship with your father, and pretty much shaped you to what you are today, to who you are today?
Just gonna go ahead.
That was a lot. I know that was a lot, but
All right. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Larry. Those that knew my father would always refer to me as Larry Jr., as Terrence does. And I was born in Texas. Father was in the military, but I grew up in Portsmouth, in Capital Manor. Um, realizing how important my father was, I didn't know until I became an adult. My dad was hard on me, all the time. He never let up. So as a kid, I was like, golly, man, this guy. And he would go out to sea on these 6-month cruises. And when he was gone, my mom had to step in and play the role of him. So she would do things like he would. And in my mind, I was like, she's just trying to be like my dad. Be glad my dad get back. Then when my dad came back, I was like, man, I'd be glad when he go back out to sea. I mean, because he was like that, man. He was, mediocrity was never acceptable. Never. You're going to do something, do your best at it. Whatever it is. Lack of effort was not tolerated ever. And it was just that constant pressure all the time. And then as an adult now, I get it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad he was the way he was. I was so fortunate. My mother and father, with my dad especially. He always dropped those gems on you, You're like, man, what you talking about? And then, sure enough, something will happen. You're like, oh, that's what he's talking about. He was giving me those nuggets all the time, man. And I've had friends that I grew up with that have told me as adults now, that would say, man, we should come to your house just because we got to see how a home is supposed to be. They were going through things in their homes. Some things I didn't even realize was going on. But they came to my house to see, okay, this is how it's supposed to be. My dad, whenever my friends were over, I had a basketball goal in my backyard. So it's kind of like neighborhood basketball goal. So kids came over all the time, we played. So anytime we were back there playing, my mom would bring Kool-Aid out. Dad would come out and check on us, y'all need anything. If he went to go get something to eat, he would bring something for everybody. Just things like that. But now, if you did something stupid, you were gonna catch it. So you talking about getting that belt back in the day? Yes, sir. I walk past that belt now, I get nervous. But again, now as an adult, I understand, and I'm so grateful, man.
Yeah.
Something my dad used to do. He used to make me do 10 math problems before I could go outside and play. He had a yellow legal pad, and he would do 10 problems. And I double check, So now, as an adult, here I am. I tutor kids at a primary school in Chesapeake. I tutor math to them, And I find a lot of kids just hear the word math and they get nervous. It's not that they can't do it; they just have any confidence in it, When I was thinking, man, when I was looking at the kid, like when I was your age, oh my God, I'm doing algebra almost, basically. I mean, it's simple math, but x plus or 5 plus x equals 10. So we know x is 5. So it looks like algebra, but it's still math. It's just math, But kids see that today, and they're like, they would not raise their hand in class. They're just scared to be wrong. They're so nervous, man. So when I'm tutoring them, I'm helping to get their confidence up. That's basically what I'm doing. So now you'll see them in class raising their hand because they know the answer. When they knew it the whole time, they were just scared. So to me, that's my dad. Just he instilled that in me, and now I'm instilling in other kids. So that keeps going. That helps our little boys, man. They need it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, a lot of times our kids come to school, man, they smell like weed. Backpacks, everything smell like weed. And this is how they come to school in the morning. So they're already behind the 8 ball. Already. We talking about primary kids, kindergarten, first, second grade. Primary kids, they come to school smelling like weed. And I'm talking like you mess around and catch a contact, get the kid out of the car just to take him into school. And he done came to school like this. You see what I'm saying? Like all the way from home. It's terrible, man. We had kids that don't want to get out of the car in the morning to come into school because they haven't seen their mom all night. Okay, so one situation, we had a kid that broke down crying, man, and what it was, she hadn't seen her parent in so long. And that particular morning, parent took off so she could take the kid to school. And she didn't want to leave her. Basically, it was like, I don't know when I'm going to see her again, so I don't want to leave, Well, I never had to worry about that kind of stuff, thank God. And my dad made sure of it. My mother, too. No discredit to my mother at all, but we're talking about dad, so. My dad was all of that, man. He was a dad to me and everyone I knew.
Yeah.
He was, to them, he was known as Pop Thompson. Man, back in the day we had to be in by the time the sun's going down and the street lights come on. So we playing football, and I'm trying to stay as long as I can. My dad stand on the porch and yell my name. Everybody just stopped. I said, come on, man, let's keep going. That's like, man, you better get on home. Like, they already know, you know what I'm saying? Like, the ball just fell in the street. He's like, man, go on. So it was just like that, man. If they heard him yell my name, they knew it was time.
Yeah.
Even though they got to stay out as late as they wanted to, I had to go home, And sometimes I come out the next day, man, last night we did this and did that. And then sometimes there'll be some stuff that happened that I ain't need to be a part of. So, I didn't like it then, but I understand it now as a father myself. My son is grown now, so I don't have to worry about that. But my dad was everything to me, man. He was everything.
My earliest memory, Larry, of your father was in 2001 when I was going through Chiefs initiation. And I had just, I met him maybe a year prior to that, but then when I was going through initiation, I ran into him outside of the Pancake House, IHOP, over in Chesapeake Square, and I was scared to death. Because, when you're going through initiation, when you run into another chief, especially a master chief, you're like, oh my goodness. And master chief, that's what I call him when I saw him, and he had been retired a number of years, but I just always referred to him as that. And he used to come used to come in here from time to time, and I remember he was a big Cowboy fan, and he knew I was a Browns fan, and when the Browns would lose, he would call me. Now after the Browns lose, I'm upset, but I would see his name on there. I would go duck him, so I'd answer the phone, and he'd say a couple things to me, and then that would be it. But like I say, his father was a giant, and his father was from South Carolina, my father was from South Carolina, I was born in South Carolina, so we had that connection. But yeah, his father was a hell of a man, so I just wanted to add that too. So.
But he was a Cowboy fan, though, huh?
Yeah, he was a Cowboy fan, yeah, unfortunately. That's the only flaw.
Yes, sir, which made him a great man.
I was ready to say, what's wrong with Cowboy fans?
Yeah, Cowboy.
Nothing, no. He just ain't won nothing.
We just ain't winning.
So,
We have one though.
Yeah.
multiple times. Yeah, and that really describes him, man.
Yeah.
We just if I can give you some money.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the rules for me growing up. Every now and then he said, "You got money on you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." If I didn't have my wallet in my pocket, he wouldn't give me more money. Because he would always say, "Always carry your wallet on. If you're in a store and you don't have any money on you, which should be in your wallet, they can accuse you of stealing. You don't have no money, so you ain't in there to buy nothing."
Yeah.
So it's things like that, man. So I made sure anytime I got dressed, I put my wallet in my pocket. because he may give me some money. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, and, you know, when he was out to sea, he would send letters home, and all of his letters would be numbered on the back, so you couldn't open them out of order, you know?
That's right.
Yeah, so he always did that, man. And every letter had a $20 bill in it. So when I saw that letter, I was like, oh, I'm about to get paid. You know, yeah, I was interested in what he had to say, but that was the incentive to read the letter.
Incentive to read.
Yeah, incentive to actually read, and then I had to write them back, of course, I had to respond. It may not seem like it now, but I was never much on words when it come to writing, so, but I made sure I wrote them back, and, that money went right in my wallet, you know? So, we were joking, my mother and I were joking, my father just recently passed, and, a lot of times you see on the news a homecoming, sailors coming back, ships coming back in the port, and families are making signs and all that kind of stuff. So my wife said, did y'all ever make signs? I said, no, we made no signs. You know, we had to get this house straight, because we knew when he came in, stuff had to be right. We had time to make no signs. We had to make sure everything was good, or to his standards, you know. There were certain things, he knew if you weren't doing it the whole time he was gone. Like, he knew things weren't right. So we were always focusing on that, you know. So we had time to make signs and stuff. So that was a little running joke we had. You know, no, we ain't making no signs. You know, but we did miss him. We couldn't wait for him to get back, man. And as soon as you see something he didn't like, he would start up. You know, just a quick story, another quick story. So I kind of like what my man said over here. You know, I grew up only child. I had a sister, but she grew up in Texas. So I was the only kid in the house. So I pretty much had everything I needed. Well, I had everything I needed, most things that I wanted. As long as I did good in school and my behavior was good, I pretty much got what I asked for, within reason, you know. And if I did act up, I didn't get anything. But, so I had a car to drive. And one night I backed into a pole, broke the tail light. And it was a Pontiac 1000, which is basically a Chevette. Okay, so I went to, I said, I gotta get this fixed, man. Dad would kill me. So I went to a body shop. They didn't have any Pontiac 1000 tail lights, they had Chevette tail lights. So I bought the Chevette tail light, put it on. It looked the same, but it's not identical. You know what I'm saying? So I probably drove like that for 2 months. First day my dad got back. I said, what are you doing with that other tail light? I'm like, God, I mean, literally just got back. You know what I mean? Just pulled in the yard. So, and then he was upset at my mom because she didn't notice it. And I was like, hold on, that ain't my fault. I was parking so she wouldn't see it. I just forgot today. You know? Anyway, he saw it as soon as he got back. But it was that kind of stuff, man. Like, you just had to be on point all the time. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But again, as an adult now, I appreciate it so much. You know, my daughter tried to tell me stuff. I said, don't come here with that fool. I already know that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just know. So, you know, I'm glad he was the way he was, man. Just, so I coached I used to coach basketball before I got sick. And, I'm still in contact with kids that I coached, 15, 20 years ago, man, you know, and a lot of times they come back and tell me, how appreciative they are of how I was with them, not even realizing how I was with them. I was just trying to, coach them and help them be respectable young men in our society. You know, because it was always bigger than basketball for me. I just teach them how to be young men, how to carry themselves. You know, so it was always about that for me. But you know, you got the kids. You think, man, they ain't paying me no mind, but I'm gonna do what I do anyway. And I've had some come back and say, man, we really appreciate it, coach. You know, thank you. And that means a lot, because for me, that comes from my dad, man, because that's how my dad was. You know, so. All right, I guess I'm done now.
You know, growing up in some of our neighborhoods, we had a lot of the two-house families. It was always a dad in most of the houses, but some of those dads had their ways, because in some of the older neighborhoods, there was always a shot house or something like that. But even though some of those dads had those ways where they might get towed up after work, but they always went to work every day,
Sure did.
and they always provided,
Always
for the family. And it was kind of embarrassing if you were young, you saw your dad, inebriated, drunk, but always food on the table, respected your mother, and if anybody about that, because sometimes they embarrass you, your dads embarrass you, but as you got older and you think about it, man, that guy was really taking care of business, even though he had his faults. And so, can anybody?
I can believe that in my story, some of that I can believe.
Sure.
Hey, my name is Tony. I grew up in Norfolk. I live in Portsmouth now, but I grew up in Norfolk. See, my parents, they got married in 1962. And I was born in 67. I have a sister that was born in like 62 also. But see, they got married in 62. They separated. My dad left in 1985.
Careful. Keep talking, talking.
My dad left in 1985, and they got divorced in 2003. But anyway, and also my dad, he passed away like 2016. Anyway, growing up was like my sister and myself. Like the only advice, I guess the only thing my dad really would give, this is why they were still married, technically. He said, Tony, whatever you do, don't ever get married. He would say that. He said, you're in the world of trouble. I didn't listen to it because I've been married 25 years now, but that's really the only advice he gave. But I grew up, in the two-parent house. But one difference with my dad, what Mr. Slim was talking about, is that he had a drinking problem. So that affected like maybe our relationship, because sometimes a lot of times he would come home drunk, at least on the weekends, on Saturday night or Sunday morning or something like that. But so I don't have a lot of, even though he was in the house like until I was 18. So that's when they separated. We didn't necessarily do a lot of stuff together or fun stuff together, like like I was hoping to do, like maybe other dads did. I would just be hopeful, like talking about like being embarrassed, like my dad, he would come home drunk, but usually be there in the middle of the night, so nobody else would really see. Like he would drive, I guess he'd go out drinking somewhere with his buddies. He would come home in the middle of the night, drunk, but really nobody else, kind of for the most part, nobody saw it because it was the middle of the night. Like I'm the only. Also, my dad, like in '62, he joined the Navy. He was in the Navy for like 5 or 6 years, and then from that he worked at it was called Norfolk and Western. It's called Norfolk and Southern now. But he worked for the railroad for like 6 years. After that, he worked at the supply center. He retired from the supply center in Norfolk. But he wanted me to join the military. I never did join the military. I went to college actually. I'm an accounting graduate from James Madison University. I'm a certified public accountant. Work as an accounting manager now in social services for the city of Portsmouth. But counting and numbers is always my background. But one thing that I guess I could say if I learned from him or didn't learn, I guess I learned in spite of him. Like I don't really drink, so like I didn't want that to affect my family. So really I don't really drink. Just like for instance, like if I go on the cruise with my wife says it keeps bugging me. Say, you on the cruise, why don't you drink a margarita? And she keeps bugging me.
Loosen up, have fun.
But it's like, alcohol isn't really my thing. But one thing I guess I learned, maybe from my dad or maybe in spite of him, is that because I have a son. Some of you know my son. He's 22 years old. He just graduated from college. He wasn't. He's not a knucklehead. He's been. He just graduated in December. And one thing that I learned, that I wanted to do is that no matter how my son turned out, I don't want him to say that I didn't spend time with him. So when he was young, I always spent time with him. Like we always had things that we did, every Saturday or Sunday. It might be something weekly. So even if he turned out a knucklehead, he couldn't say, well, my dad didn't spend time with me. Or he just, or if he did say that, he would say, well, I'm a knucklehead, but my dad still spent time with me, and, but I just became a knucklehead. But that was really important to me. I think that's important, I think, to, especially in the developmental years, to spend time with your children. Because I don't really have, not too many, most of my memories are mostly negative, for the most part, just because of drinking and the effect it has on my family, come home drunk and cursing and things like that. For some reason, like he had, even though he would come home drunk, like on Sundays, he would kind of say, like, there was one time I was going to cut the grass on a Sunday. He said, no, Tony, don't cut the grass. It's Sunday. You shouldn't be cutting the grass on Sunday. But then in my head, I'm thinking, well, you come home drunk on a Sunday.
What's the difference?
But anyway, that day I got to cut the grass. So I didn't have to cut the grass that particular day because it was a Sunday. But just some of the I don't know. I think of it as inconsistencies, maybe in people's upbringing or logic. But for me, I think it's important to spend time, like with your child and your children, and just hopefully have positive memories, not just. I just have really sporadic memories, and most of the memories I have are generally negative, and usually around drinking and the effects of alcohol.
Tony, you talk about spending time with your kids. That's one thing I love about this brother right here. I met him at the YLD Academy, Portsmouth, where we, do stuff with kids. And that's how I met P. Beats. And every time I see him, he's always got his kids with him. He's always got them with him. And he's out there, and I'll let him tell the story, but every time you see his brother, he's got his kids, So hopefully before we wrap things up, I want to hear from them. And, and I pray that they really, really understand and what they see out of their father and get from their father. Because, again, a lot of kids don't have that. A lot of, especially in our community, a lot of young boys don't have that. Or if they do have dads around, they ain't, on the up and up, So that's one thing I love about this brother. He's always got his boys with him. Same thing with William, too. He's always got his son with him, Because whenever I invite him to something, I know he's coming, Yeah, to soak stuff in, It's good for young kids to be around, this kind of environment, soak stuff in, be surrounded by books and by men and telling their stories, because one day they're going to be in that position,
Yeah. And Terrence, let me add how important that is, because I can remember being their age and my dad taking me to things, and just like they're like this and things like that. But once you grow up, you remember those things.
Right.
They're soaking it in. But it might not look like it.
Right.
But it's going to manifest itself in them later on as they grow up. They're going to remember these things and some of the things that were said. So it's so important.
There you go. That's the air conditioner y'all hear too, so don't be scared. Yeah, that's air conditioner outside. Big B chime in, Will chime in.
My name is Arthur, and
Q dog.
So like you said, it does soak in, and these memories add to who they are later on. So we're still dealing with Tony, kind of the reverse mode of what made me to be better, other than God, was that my dad wasn't there, and my mom stepped in as mother and father. But my grandfather was there. The men in the church were there. The men at school were there. Coaches on the different things at school were there. Friends of my mom that were in motorcycle clubs, they were there. Abdul, and then later on other men that came through from the boys' counselors. So God put men there because He knew I needed the man, but I didn't have the one that I was looking for. So my father, I saw maybe once a year, but I know I got a card from him twice a year. It was my birthday and Christmas. There was some money in there. And, so later on we had that conversation of, like, you knew that as a person, a being, that the amount that was in those 2 checks twice a year would not sustain a person. He said, of course, he apologized. Those things of the past. So we kind of crossed that bridge later on, probably when I was like maybe 16 or 17. But up until that point, the friends that I had and their dads, like Larry, it was the Hall family and the Bender family. Those men on that block kind of kept everybody in the perspective of what a man does and what a man do, and how he communicates with his kids. So on the Hall side, he was very stern, but he was very friendly. On the Bender side, he was very thorough, but he didn't talk that much. So it's like you got to see those type of things. So I wound up, doing 20 years in the Navy. I had a scholarship in music with my high school before I left, but my girlfriend was pregnant with my son. So I had to make a decision to go to FAMU and play music or figure out how to take care of his mom and him. So I chose the latter, and it was joining the Navy. And so that gave me that opportunity to give him and what I didn't have. And it was kind of like automatic in my mind all the time, always being there, always communicating. He got disciplined, but it was education in the discipline, as far as why are you getting disciplined? What occurred? What did you not pay attention to? It was education in the discipline. So I have three children. So he's 36. My other son's 22, and my daughter's 18. So the 36-year-old, he went to college, Alabama State, went into the Army for 9 years. He married his college sweetheart. So now they have 4 children. They live in Atlanta, and we talk, pretty often. My son is 22. He's a senior at Virginia State. So he kind of grew up in the house constantly, in that where I was coaching him, his sister, the neighborhood kids. I was blessed to, quote unquote, to be that man in the neighborhood that kids came by, and I was still at the age that they wanted to get, balled up on the court or whatever, and it was a good thing. And then my daughter, being the last of the Mohicans, being the little princess, she's at Old Dominion. She just finished her first year at Old Dominion. So I just think I'm really blessed to have used whatever God allowed me to switch from what could have just been bad and say, man, my dad wasn't there. I'm going to be out in these streets. I'm going to do these with these women and the other. I always had the reverse of it. I could still hear that song, treated like a lady. You know what I'm saying? So I've always had that type of respect in that aspect. And it's just been good to continue to, be around other men that have had positives and minuses and, pull away from that thing as far as being a member of Omega Psi Phi, manhood, scholarship, persevering, uplift are our cardinal principles, and that falls along with being a chief in the Navy. And there's just so many things that continue to be a blessing from the Lord to be able to pass on to others, that I'm not looking over my shoulder that I've done somebody wrong. Everything I did, one thing I would tell them, if I'm in your business, it's because you did something that I had to get into your business. So if you don't want me in your business, don't put me in your business. And that was from my kids to sailors, friends, whatever, so on and so forth. But it was a perspective to help you understand that your decisions have consequences. So I'll put a beer right there.
Well, I can give my story. It kind of goes along the lines. It's kind of similar track with his brother, but this is my own unique story. My parents met as students at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland, and they got married, and they had myself and my twin sister. So I was thinking it's older than my twin sister. And my parents, they were married for a few years, but when we were 2, they got a divorce, and the main reason was because of religious differences. Because my mother's family grew up as Baptist and Protestant oriented beliefs, but my father was Jehovah's Witness, and so when they just got married, it just was kind of like some irreconcilable differences. And my mom told me that God gave her a dream, one night, and basically the dream was a picture that was hanging on the wall. It was 2 rams on the wall, it was my sister and me, it was a symbolism. And it was like fire all around it. And then she heard like God's voice saying, you need to get them out of here. Right. So my mom took us, and she took us back to her mother's house, my grandmother's house. And at the time, my grandfather's house in Portsmouth, Virginia. So that's where we grew up. And so I remember my early years. I had like real kind of faded, memories of my father. But I do remember a period of time when he was coming down to visit us, and my parents were going through the whole kind of custodial type of battle. My sister and I, we kind of oriented towards our mother. I think all children kind of naturally, kind of gravitate towards their mother in their early years. So I remember, we wanted to kind of stay with our mom. But we still loved our father, and, one of my early memories is being in the backyard playing with my sister, and my dad would pull up, and then my mother would have to hand us over the fence to him, and we were not really understanding like what was going on, So there was a little bit of like trepidation and trauma in the early years, but there still was some love mixed in it too, because at times we would be happy to see our father, we just didn't want to stay with our father. So that whole process played out, and our mother, had custody, and so we weren't really in contact with our father in our early years. We grew up without our father. I grew up without my father. We didn't really have any communication with them. And then I kind of like internalized that and kind of like had the attitude like, well, I can succeed without him, if he's not there. But I got my mom, and I had a strong Christian household. I had my grandfather who was there for a little bit, but then he passed away a few years later. But I learned some things from him. I remember him watching football with me, and that kind of got me into sports. And when he passed away, and that's like for some reason I just started grabbing like the sports section of the newspapers, and I would read it, And I just kind of like just educated my sports. I think that's kind of my way of kind of like trying to connect with him. So I grew up, like I said, without my father, but we did have a strong Christian household. So I kind of took that as like that God was a spiritual father. And I tried to model myself with growing to a man understanding, under that as an example. But I still felt like I had holes in me to a certain extent. I was kind of quiet and shy, and I was smart. And so some kids would kind of take that as a weakness, and I would be challenged and joked on and stuff. But I was blessed that God had put some friends around me in my neighborhood as a group. And one of my good friends in the neighborhood was this guy named Derek Staten. He's like 2 years older than me. But he kind of like took me under his wing, and it's like, he got me out the house, and, he got me playing sports around the neighborhood. I was never really good at sports to play like for any school teams or anything like that, but I would play in the neighborhood, And I remember one day we were playing tackle football. It's my first time playing tackle football. It was on the side of my house. And we had different games back then, like touch football, sideline pop, Yeah. And I was out there, getting cracked and, dragged and everything, And my mom was like, looking through the window with my grandmother, because she told me the story later. And my mom wanted to go out there, and my grandmother's like, no, he's okay, he's good, And I'm so glad that they didn't come out there, because that was like, I felt like that was like my acceptance and initiation into, my neighborhood family, These guys, they were positive. There wasn't like any gangs or anything like that, But I had my run-ins with them, with some of the guys, with times and stuff. But it kind of toughened me up, and it taught me like when, how to stand up for myself, And it helped me when I went back to school, it kind of toughened me up, and I learned to how to stand up for myself and everything like that. So thank God for those things. Like I said, I was really good at, academically, and so I ended up going to college. I went to Duke University and graduated, majored in public policy, sociology, and went on to law school. I'm not a lawyer, I thought I wanted to be one at the time. During my second year of law school, my mother died of cancer. Okay, and so that was really hard, And she said she wanted me to go back to law school and finish. I didn't really particularly enjoy law school that much, but I did go back and I finished got my law degree.
Amen.
And I did pass the bar because I just wanted to complete it, Um, so today, I did have worked before in city government with the city of Portsmouth. And today I work for the Center. It's a nonprofit organization.
Very
I'm a
familiar.
grants manager there, so I raise money to help support our programs. But
I tried to get a job there one time.
really,
Yeah.
okay, we can talk after.
Mhm.
But I just wanted something that I felt kind of fulfilled and that was helping people. So I feel like that's, I had my plans, but God kind of directed me that He wanted to go, because He knows me. But later in life, like after my mom passed, God opened up the door, for me to finally have a relationship with my father. And so I remember my maternal grandmother was passing, my maternal grandmother was passing away in Baltimore. And my dad had remarried and I had a brother who unfortunately was incarcerated. And I had two sisters from the second marriage. Okay, so my oldest sister on that side, so I'm the oldest, the second set of the oldest of the second set of children. She reached out to me, and my twin sister wrote us a letter, and she explained what was going on. She said that a grandmother really wanted to see us before she passed away. So we said, okay, so that's what brought us back down to Baltimore, and we were able to see her. She was able to see us and everything like that. So we talked and got to know, I visited my brother, and then I got to know my sisters and my father. And so I kept in touch, with all of them. And my dad, we made several trips over the years, over there. And I was a late bloomer as far as like getting married and everything. I got married real late. But one of my visits to Baltimore, when I was sitting down with my dad, he was going over some pictures, some old pictures, and it's some old pictures of him and my mom when they were in college. And he showed me one picture that just touched my heart, because I saw it was him and my mom when they were younger in college, and I saw the way that he looked at her. I'm sorry. But
Okay.
Take your time,
It's
bro.
okay,
I
brother.
saw the way he looked at her, and I recognized that he loved her, because I seen that look, when I looked at my wife, when I first met her, I recognized the look. And so, he told me, he said, y'all were born in love. Y'all are love. I need to hear that,
Understand?
So, yeah, I need to hear that.
Understand.
Great story. 'Cause
Yeah. So, I ended up marrying my wife, and I invited my dad to the wedding. And, he came down, he was at my wedding, and, I appreciate him, doing that, And like you said, like, I never taken anything from my dad, but he had offered me some money, like when I came down there, and I said, I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna let him, help me, And I took that, and that's what my wife, read and read, So I enabled him to be a part, of me getting married, so that way he, was a part of a significant, moment in my life, And so to this day, we still, keep in contact, and I'm thankful, that God allowed me to have a relationship with him.
Amen. Appreciate that. Go ahead, William, say something.
For me, based off the questions that we have received today, just figuring out where to start. So for me, my father wasn't around. My father wasn't really in my life. It was one of those things where we just had to, me and my mom had to go report to like a gas station or report to his job at a particular time to go get funds. And then after we go get funds, and that was it. He would ask me about how my day was, how I'm doing, but it was nothing on any other level than what it was, which was surface. It was always on that kind of movement. How you doing? Good, fine, all right. See you, see. But reaching out to him and wasn't as I got older, reaching out to them and letting them know, like, hey, I would like to start something up, even though we wasn't there when you were young. Would like to start something up with you, get some kind of communication, get some kind of, things going. It didn't happen the first time. First time it was like, in the car, same thing happened. We go, hey, how you doing? Good. Junior, I'm about to go back to work. And he traveled, what was that, 30 to 40 minutes to get to me, and then he traveled back. So I was like, what's going on? So my thing was like cut him off at the hip, but again came up again, was like, hey, you need to reach out to your father some way, somehow. Went through the channels, talking or trying to find him, because I really didn't have his number at all at this point. But I knew where he worked at. So I went to the people or called them and was like, hey, my father, it was like, we didn't even know he had a son. So I was like, okay, cool, set that up, keep going, because you still gotta get to your mission, which is see where he is. So finally went through some channels, talked to some people, was like, hey, let me give you a call back. And finally somebody gave him my number, and then he called me back. He was like, first things first, don't call this number back again after we get done talking. I got diabetes, and I got some things going on, but how you doing? Good? Okay, cool. Junior, don't call this number back. So it was just like, never ending wall after wall. But the one thing that taught me was my little man today won't have to experience that. And one of those things where not only he won't, now I have a mission, which is other men or other young men who I meet won't have to go through that same thing. Or if I come into contact with a young person, it's always been my mission to be that person they can be able to contact no matter what, if, and buts about it. I'll be in their corner. If they have something they're going through, talk to me. Something they need, I'm there for you. Because not only him, I want him to be able to have other kids, big kids, they can be able to pour into him and do the same. So everything I give the older kid, they need to give to him and be an example and pass this down the right way. For that, it was just, that's how I want to live my life, and I need to make sure that he has tools in his toolbox to make sure that he's growing up to be the young man that I want him to be. Now, anything right now is just that I want him to soak all this in. This is why I brought him. Like before I came here, I told him, I said, I need you to listen, not respond, and I need you to play in the corner, and that will be your job for the day, because at the end of the day, he gets excited when he gets in rooms like this, so he wants to feel like he have to, which you don't. And I want him to understand, as a young man, you need to soak right now, and then when your time called for it, it's your time. So that's what I want him to understand right now at his age. So for the things that he's doing now, I always commend him. Like when we leave here, I'm going to commend him on his behavior. That's the one thing is my job to do. I feel like to understand on that, because I want him to understand that. I don't just do it on the bad things. I want to make sure you understand on the good things too that you've been doing. So that's me.
And boys, don't let me forget, Randall, the gentleman over there from Washington D.C., last week I went here, he brought me a box of cars, of Matchbox cars. I think all boys should have cars, basketballs, footballs, bicycles, all that. So make sure y'all see me before you leave. Randall brought me some cars, okay? AJ, you see that? AJ? Because you got a truck out here one time, didn't you? You still got that Walmart truck? You still got that truck? They got all the wheels on it? Yep. Okay, got you. All right, so make sure before y'all go, y'all get a car for me. Randall gave me some cars.
All right.
Chance, I just want to, I just wanted to say something because some people might relate. I mentioned about law and the Navy. My father, I found out that I was adopted. Didn't find out until I was 21. Oh, wow. I'm at my house and this guy comes to the door and say, "Hey, I'm your brother." So, but hearing the story, I was raised as an only child, and then hearing that story, it was 4 of us, 4 guys. And my birth father was in and out of jail, really, really mean, to the point where my birth mother just left and went to New York and left 4 boys in the city of Portsmouth. And me being the youngest, I was the most one to be adopted. So my father adopted me. And back then, you didn't really talk about the adoption, you just went on about your life. All of a sudden, somebody comes home with a kid, and, and nobody says anything. What was amazing about it, the whole community knew I was, and nobody ever said anything to me, that I was adopted. But, and my father ended up he was an attorney. But before he was an attorney, he was an educator. And he was fighting for equal pay for teachers. They fired him. So he joined the Navy and did a stint there and went back to school, law school, on his GI Bill. And said, I'll come back and fight this injustice, with the law firm. Now, I didn't follow in his footsteps. That's another story. But he always told me, you talk about somebody being proud of you no matter what. I was on the basketball team at IC Norfolk. JV I started. By the time I moved up to varsity, I was on the bench. But he was at every game. Put him in the game. If you want to win, put him in the game. The coach knew what he was doing. I wasn't the best. But, just to have that kind of support, regardless of what I did. And sometimes I got, mad at him or embarrassed by him. One time I was at Wilson. I went to Wilson before I went to Norfolk. And this was in the late 60s. So I'm probably older than everybody. But this was the late 60s. So the white principal called everybody to the auditorium, all the men. And we were just starting to grow our afros. And he told us we need to cut our hair because we look like gorillas. Can you imagine that? The principal? So we all got up and walked out.
Right.
And I didn't tell my dad.
No, this is at Wilson.
At Wilson. Wilson High School, about 69. They piled and all, if you know those names. And I should have told him when I thought about it, but I knew if I told him, he was gonna come down there
Like a
and
wrecking
raise,
ball.
you're right, right. And, at some point, when you're a teenager, sometimes he can come down there and embarrass me. But that was a big mistake I made then, but, that's why I asked about, sometimes your parents embarrass you, but as you grow older, you learn to appreciate what they were trying to do. I would have the car, I would come home, my dad would just be sitting there waiting, and when I come in the house, past curfew, he'd just get up and walk past me. But the next day, I had to take this long lecture from him, and I would say, can you just please beat me? Because it was worse, hearing that, an attorney. And, but I just wanted to say, because I had it pretty good, and how blessed I was, listening to my brothers. If I had grown up in that environment that they grew up in, no telling where I would have been now. So blessed, and blessed to have a father that was proud of me no matter what. I know he wanted me to go to law school, but that wasn't the path I took. But he told me, whatever you do, be involved with your community and your city, which is why I've been involved in politics and everything in the city. So just wanted to tell that story. That's a pretty good story. It had its ups and downs, but listening to you guys, it's always good to hear people's personal stories, and especially yours, and knowing that, finding out that you were born in love, because you could have had that rage, why did he leave us? But you were born out of love between your parents. So that's all I have to say about it.
Can you hear from me, brother? Say something. Say something. 'Cause you out here in these streets, making a difference, man. Right.
My father, man. Yeah, I ain't never talk about him for real. That's crazy. Well, I was born in the country. My mom and my dad, they got married, I guess, back in 1990 or something like that. I was born in 1989. I had a trailer out in the country, had properties. I remember my dad had like tractors. He was always had like a dump truck, and I remember they had telling stories about how they started a logging company. They used to pick up the trees before he had the tractor. They used to pick up the trees and put them on a dump truck and take them to West Point, and they would get like $700 a load or something like that. So like my dad, he always been an entrepreneur type guy, and I learned that he only went past like the seventh grade, you know. He, he was always getting money, and he was like, I knew not to do anything to make him mad. So I was, my mom, she'll let me do whatever, but whenever dad come out, I was an angel, you know what I'm saying? Because he didn't play. I remember me and my sister was going at it over some fireworks one time, and I'm in there crying because she was bigger than me. She used to beat me up all the time. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, give me the fireworks. Next thing you know, my daddy came in there and started hitting us with the belt. And then he said, he left out. And he came back, he had 2 belts. And he left out again. He said, I'm going to get my gun. Me and my sister looked at each other, man. We hard. We ran down the street. Man. I'm in my boxers, no shoes on, no shirt on. We in the street. We down the street, hiding in the woods. We just crying. We like, man, we scared. You know what I'm saying? We going back home. Now we seen this van go past, so we go back home, and then my mom was there like, hey, all right, like yeah. So yeah, that was our last fight, So we didn't get in no trouble for that. And then I know I was about 10 years old. Well, before I talk about that, we used to have a whole bunch of people at the house all the time. So it's like I heard a lot of stories. And like I guess the shot house, now that I'm old, I know what they was doing. You know what I'm saying? They had liquor parties and stuff like that. And then my mom used to take care of my grandma in the news. So like when my aunt, she was in the military, she used to go on TDY, whatever that is. I don't know. To this day, I don't know what that is, but she
Go away temporarily for assignment.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But so my mom used to go down there to take care of my grandma, and every time she went down, my this white girl came over that had a daughter and all that. So I ain't know what's going on, but now I got my sisters and stuff. I got like they got 5 kids together now. But yeah, at the time, I didn't know what was going on because when I go down there, my mom had some guys down there, Mr. Larry, So so me just seeing all this, different people and stuff, and then I remember my dad used to sit up in the kitchen at night and he used to just put a whole bunch of little squares out on the table and stuff. Like if I'm up late, I see people coming over there and they on the stove, pots and stuff. I'm just like, I'm looking at, I don't know what's going on, but now as I get older, I'm like, dang, And then I remember I was about 10 years old. I woke up. I remember I jumped off the porch. I came outside to go play basketball, jumped off the porch, and a guy came out the bushes with a gun. Get on the ground, and police just came in, flooded the property, and they took my dad out. They made to open up the garage. They put him in the car, and I haven't seen him. I was 10, and then I ain't seen him until I was 25. So when that happened, he got like a kingpin charge and all that type of stuff. So so I moved from the country to downtown Newport News at Dixon Court, and that was a crazy change from because we had like I used to cut firewood up. We had like chickens, turkey, pigs and stuff, and then straight to the hood. I'm out there, playing basketball on crates, by the dumpster and stuff, flipping off mattresses and stuff. So it's like I kind of tell people, going from the country, and then that's why I kind of turned gangster at, and then it's crazy because my 2 best friends that I met at the time, they gone right now. So how they say like out of 3 people, only one person make it out, and both my homeboys that I met, they did, because I was kind of around, they was bullies, we knew how to fight and stuff. So I guess, growing up, ain't nobody want to fight them. So, that happened. And then what I took from my dad, selling drugs and stuff, what I took from it made me, as I got older, like, growing up, like say 14, 15 out the hood, people like, yeah, so I'm like, nah, man, I ain't touching that stuff. My daddy in jail right now. So, I kind of took that good thing from a positive. I got some positive from that negative. That's why, I never sold cocaine or nothing. I ain't even deal with nobody that did it because I was just like, I know what it could do. They give them out football numbers for that. So that's why. So then I'm the only male on my dad's side that didn't go to jail for selling drugs. You know what I'm saying? But I caught a gun charge when I was 17 though. But you know what I'm saying? That's another story. So yeah. So I guess I learned that. And that kind of made me the person I am too, because I just always wanted to do better. And then my aunts that was in the military, every time I go to her house, it was like she took us to Colorado. We did a lot of different things, and she used to pay me to cut her grass and stuff. So I'm 12 years old, just always walking around. I always had like $150 in my pocket, in my wallet, because I was cutting her grass. I was cutting my other aunt's grass, my uncle grass, people down the street. I was like a young hustler, And then, so I always had like my little thing in there, how to make money a legal way, And then, then that turned into, just being, and then, just being a cool guy. Everybody was cool with me. I had a car. My dad, he loved cars and stuff at the time. I remember it's his van still at my stepmom's house. He got he had a Nissan 300. I was born in a Chevette too. You know what I'm saying? So they still got that car up there too, it's all rusty and stuff. But I kind of, in my day, I used to hear stories like he say, man, I never worked for somebody. I always go get, he always had his own businesses, and I just picked up a lot of stuff like that. And then I never seen my dad wear like jeans before. He always had on slacks. And he used to play guitar. So every time, everybody that know my dad, they be like, hey man, your dad is a legend, I guess for the wrong reason, you know what I'm saying? But, you know what I'm saying? So, so everywhere, people that know my family, they say, man, they see what I do now, they be like, it's just, I guess they look at me like I'm a complete different person, and that's how I found out, like, like my family was real big on like just being real, like, being a man of their word, and I guess that just stuck with me. If I say I'm gonna do something, I do it. Like, a lot of people trust me. I know that I steal nothing. Always had money, my own money. Always made money, doing good things. Like, and so I said I learned that from my dad too. And my dad, when he got out of jail, I was 25. I went up there and talked to him. And he stayed with my little sister now. And, he's still funny, dude. He the real changes. We tell him about all these stories. Every time I come out, pulled up in the Benz, he was like, yeah, how you get that car? I was like, yeah, so the wristband. The style, he was like, yeah, man, you should. Well, you know me, I shoot him. He always gangster. Like, he talking, he like, yeah, but that's funny, man. But, but he always be like, hey, man, it's a good thing you doing, And then I remember he said, man, let me hold something. And then I was like, and I thought about it. Every time we used to go to the store, he was giving me and my sister $2. So I was like, here go $2. He started laughing. He was weak. You know what I'm saying? So I pulled up with the family, all that, nice cars and all that. And, he like, man, you'll give me $2. I was like, all them times you gave me $2, here you go. You know what I'm saying? So, that was a good laugh on that one. So, but yeah, I talk to him. I go up there in the country, still see him, And, man, my dad, he had his own, he got 9 kids, three different baby mamas, I should say. You know, he's still married to my mom to this day. I don't know how, but you know, and they haven't been with each other since I was 10. You know, and that's my story with my pops, man. I'm actually a junior too, so you know that's P3 right there. He number 3. So I don't know. I guess I just learned. I just wanted to be. I always like to be different from people. So like that's why I do the stop shooting thing now. Because me and my homeboys we were sitting in the car one day and we was just listening to the radio. You know, and we were smoking or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But I quit smoking. You know what I'm saying? So you know. So, yeah, that story we just heard about with the kids pulling up the school. I remember the day they dropped my kids off. I'm like, dang, man, you know what I'm saying? They getting out the car now. They go to school. They ain't gotta smell like nothing. You know what I'm saying? So that made me feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was hard too.
Yeah, if you YouTube stop shooting, you'll see this brother all over the place, you know, with his wristbands and kicking knowledge and, you know, encouraging the youth to put the guns down. And like I say, I met him at the J. Parker Rec Center where we do stuff with kids. And me and him linked up over a year ago. And he brings his boys here to read, and we read books together. We do all kinds of stuff. So, you know, him and Will, these are my 2 young guys I kick it with. You know, they keep me on the straight and narrow. You know, they positive dudes out in the community. They always got their kids with them, and they always on the up and up, you know.
Kudos to y'all, lead by
Yeah,
example.
up and up, yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Graham, what's happening? Speak to us, say something. Speak to us. That's my partner at work, man, good dude there, good brother.
My partner, Dr. Terrence Graham, child therapist, been in college practice 22 years.
Dr. Graham, you mind standing up so
Oh,
we can get
sorry,
you on?
sorry.
We'll make sure we capture all of you.
Dr. Terrence Graham, been in private practice 22 years. My private practice in Raleigh, North Carolina. Graduate North Carolina A&T. Master's degree A&T. Master's degree in A&T. But I wish my father could see me today. Hearing all these stories about your dad got me thinking like, man, my dad died at 45 years old. That's a heart attack. He was my protector, he was my superhero, he was my educator, he was my provider, he was my everything. My dad was in the Air Force, Vietnam vet. He used to fly into Vietnam, pick up the dead bodies and caskets, fly them out to Okinawa. So he got Agent Orange. I think that's what killed him. We found out later that's what he died from. Yeah. So my dad, my dad was a man's man. So he didn't take no junk. My mom, they went to high school together. So just me and my brother. But my dad taught me that at a young age, monetize your skill set.
Mhm.
My mom taught me how to draw, so I wrote 4 children's books. Mom taught me how to draw. Dad taught me how to play ball, play baseball, play basketball. My brother played college football. My dad bought us a basketball court. He built us a basketball court, full court, just like Larry Jr. was saying. All the kids came to my house in the neighborhood, play ball. My dad took everybody in the neighborhood to football practice, basketball practice, baseball practice. He did all that. He was a neighborhood superhero. He knew where all the dead bodies were buried. He knew, he took us to church every Sunday. Him and my mom, great parents, 2-parent household. I had a great childhood. I didn't have any adversity until he passed away in 1994. So, he taught me how to write in cursive, which kids don't do today.
Right.
So he taught me how to sign my name in cursive. He said, this is how you're gonna make your money moving forward. And I taught Mr. Terrence all the time at work. My signature is $400 an hour, every day. When I sign my name, he cut the check for $400. That's how I make my money. Like I said, I've been in private practice 20 years. But my father never got to see any of this, right? He did go to my graduation at A&T. I got deployed. Oh, let me back up. Because my dad was in the Air Force, I ended up going to the Army young. I joined the military at 16. So back then, me and my dad used to have these disagreements that you could not go to college and go to the military at the same time, which I proved him wrong because I was in there on reserve. So he kept saying, hey, look, I want you to go to the military full time, or you're going to play baseball full time. So at the time, got a scholarship to Campbell, and I wanted to go to NC State. But the conversation was, are you able to hang around Mr. Charlie every day? Meaning, are you able to, my high school majority black, are you able to function at NC State? Are you able to function at NC State and do what you need to do to make that baseball team? So I had this idea, I want to go to HBCU, so I ended up going to A&T. But at the time, I was in the Army, so I had to go to basic training and AIT. So as far as baseball, that was out. And then I got deployed, so I missed the entire baseball season anyway. So I bring all that up to say, my dad had this blueprint for my life, right? He said, you're not gonna have any children young, you're not gonna get married young, this is your path. You're gonna be greater than me, you're gonna be this thing that we're gonna be proud of. I said, bet. When he died, I didn't know what to do. Because everything I was taught by him, all of a sudden I have a void in my life. Now, my mom's still living. She rocked the road. She took care of me and my brother. My mom is the greatest example of strength that I know. She lost her husband. She lost her best friend. Never remarried. Never had any. I never seen my mom or nothing. Okay. When my dad died, my female friend at the time was pregnant. So I guess God took him away and gave me my son. Okay. My dad name is William Graham. My son's name is William Graham. Okay. So I ended up marrying this young lady. This is what I thought. This is what I was taught, and this is what I learned about myself. You can be a great father without being a husband. Okay. Not saying I was a bad husband. That wasn't it. I was still grieving. Got married. I was going through that grieving process. But I'm a great father. I chose not. I chose to be a father. I didn't choose to be a husband. Okay. I have 3 children. William Graham, he's Dr. William Graham, graduated from North Carolina A&T. Xavier Graham graduated from North Carolina A&T. And my daughter, Deanna Graham, she graduated from Howard University. All my kids play at Sigma, by the way. Okay? Yeah. My daughter plays Xavier Phi Beta, and they never met my grandfather, my dad, never met him. They don't know anything about him, right? So educating them about their grandfather was a challenge. Now, their mother knew my dad, right? But again, my dad died during the time, as soon as I graduated from A&T, he passed away. No, I'm sorry. As soon as I came back from Saudi Arabia, from Desert Storm, he passed away. So I was angry with the military because that time I could have been with my dad. I'm over there fighting for, whatever. So I said, how can I educate my kids about their about their granddaddy, which is this big figure to me. So I did this movie about my dad. It's called Cycle. It's on Amazon Prime. It's about the sins of the father. It's about generational curses. But in that movie, talk about premature death. My biggest fear, my anxiety in life, is all the males in my life died young. All of them died before they was 50. Dad died at 44. His sister died at 48, and my dad's brother died at 46. So I did this film about my dad and his siblings and my grandmother. So I did the film so my kids would know what it was like growing up in North Carolina. And also, I wanted William, my oldest son, to know this is where you got your name from. But by doing the movie, I ended up educating myself about my dad's dad, who died at 42 years old. Okay? So we're talking about two generations of black men in my family who died young. So my anxiety was premature death. So I'm 54, currently. That's why I said I wish my dad could see me now. So I do this movie about generational curses. Come to find out that my grandmother and her siblings, they don't really tell the truth about your heritage and your family dynamics, your family structure, because they want to protect everyone in the family. My dad's dad was killed by his cousin over a woman, Eddie Duke Georgia. Who talking about the Duke George? Yeah, okay, yeah. You know the Duke George, where you play cards, get your women, get your liquor, you do all this stuff. So my grandfather was killed over this woman. The guy that killed my grandfather, my dad's dad, lived down the street from him. Okay? I didn't find this out until I was doing this documentary. Couldn't find out. My dad he didn't know that his cousin is the guy that killed his dad, right? So in the process of premiering the movie, doing the movie, some people in the family was kind of upset. They're like, hey, you know, we're gonna talk about this. There are two sets of grams in North Carolina. One is my dad's side, and one is the guy that killed my dad's side. The grams that killed my dad's dad, we have no relationship with at all. And that's the reason why I never knew that. Because I see people all the time, hey man, you came to such and such, Martha Graham, Mabel Graham, never heard of these people. They're like, yeah, that's your dad's people. Nah, that's my dad's killer's people, right? So everybody saw this movie, and they was like, oh wow, he found a secret. It was a secret. So the secret was the guy that killed my dad's dad, my granddaddy. He put a curse on my grandmother. He wished death on all her kids. Real story. He wished death on all her children. And my grandmother lost all her kids at a young age. Now, some people don't believe that stuff, but if you, and my grandmother's a believer, church every Sunday, but when this man cursed her, psychologically, she believed this is going to happen. And when she lost her kids, but they never told me the story. I did a lot of research, and I found this out. So did the premiere, my kids see this movie. So they was like, oh, wow. So their mother knew my dad, but she never shared anything about my father. And when I say my kids look just like my dad and my grandfather, they look just like him. So I share those today is, when you embrace life like I do, I mean, Terrence, I'm happy all the time. I just love life because I'm not saying I beat the odds, but I take care of myself. I try to do the right thing. I'm happily married now, but like I said, me being a dad was more important than being a husband at that time. I was getting young, right? And my kids are successful. I don't have no problems out of them. I'm proud of them. And I tell them every day, I say, hey, look, man, their mother never remarried, never had another man in their lives. I never had to worry about another man in the house with my kids. Never had to worry about another man disciplining my kids. My kids 100% listen to me. I'm the only man in their life that I know of, but I know their mother never had another guy in the presence of my kids. So I've been blessed to know, like, hey, I live in D.C. When I got divorced, I moved to D.C. I drove from D.C. to Winston-Salem every weekend to see them play ball, go to their graduations, go to their plays. I did all that stuff. Absent parent, maybe in theory, but I was still there. And the only thing, I'm in on this, the only thing my kids tell me now, but they told me back then, hey man, you can't discipline us if you're not in the home. When you come from DC, when you come in the house, you can't go, oh, okay, your grade's bad, you can't be that. You have to be the fun parent. You have to be the guy we go to enjoy life. It's already stressful that you left us, right? But I understand that. To this day, and going back to what you were saying, I tell my kids every day on the phone I love them. I tell them and I show them. Before I get off the phone with them, I love you, Xavier. I love you, Brianna. I love you, William. My dad used to do that to me. My mom still does that to me. My brother don't, but I tell my kids, hey man, you have to embrace this thing because everybody had to make a sacrifice. Your mom, their mother chose not to have men running in and out of the home, which protects me and my kids out of respect. My mom did the same thing with me and my brother. She never remarried and had men in and out, whatever. Even though we was older, but still. I found my mom maybe went on a date a couple years ago. And so I asked, I said, hey, I heard you went on a date. She said, boy, I'm 72 years old. It's about time for me to go out on a date. I've been sacrificing all this time to make sure you guys were good because I know how you are, Terrence. You're real aggressive, and your dad was aggressive. I ain't want to have no guy up in here, and it'd be conflict, you know what I'm saying? But I've been blessed. My dad taught me very valuable lessons, like you said, that toolbox and those skill sets. He taught me at a young age. He said, hey, man, you don't like people telling you what to do, so you have to be entrepreneurial. You have to work for yourself. I've been working for myself for 22 years. My dad said, hey, you graduate from A&T, you get your master's, we'll buy you a white Mercedes. He died before I graduated. White Mercedes, black. I got every Mercedes ever made, right? He loves sports cars, he loves cars. He said, but I got his work ethic. He taught me a work ethic a long time ago, and I teach my kids work ethic. Hey, you don't eat. I mean, if you don't work, you don't eat. Right. I'm not gonna pay you bills. Right. I'm not buying you nothing. Right. I gave you a skill set. I gave you education. Implement it. There you go. So, thank you for listening. Right. But again, I miss my father. His name is William Graham. Amazon Prime, where the movies is, but it's also on YouTube. The Cycle. So, The Cycle, and I'll make sure you guys take that.
Any kids want to say anything? Kids, y'all want to say anything? Say anything about your dad, how important it is? You see why your dad, you understand what your dad is doing? And if you don't, that's okay. 20 years from now, you will. Anything? AJ, anything you want to say about your pops? Huh? Okay. Y'all other fellas? No. All right. Okay. Gotta get ready to roll. Okay. Hey, I appreciate y'all coming out. Again, Men's Read, if you want to join our book club, get with one of us. Again, appreciate y'all coming out telling your story. We do a number of different things here at the Printed Word Bookstore, mostly for kids, for the community. We're extension to the community, but appreciate y'all coming out today. I invited some other guys, some things came up, some guys were out of town, but that's okay. But appreciate y'all. Appreciate y'all for putting up with the noise of the air conditioner. And, anyway, anything, Slim, do you want to say anything before we wrap it up?
I'd just like to thank all the fathers for speaking up and, sharing their stories. Often we don't get a chance to hear stories like this, especially if you watch the regular news, you just see where it's an absent father or, you hear the bad news. But this is really typical of our community, not the way it's portrayed often. So thanks a lot for, speaking up. And by the way, my dad was a Kappa, so.
People don't always make the right decision in life, but things do turn out. Right?
Well, I'm glad he's not here to hear that.
Yeah, I just want to say good meeting everybody. I enjoyed the stories, man. You know what you're doing, man. Keep doing what you're doing. We appreciate that. All right. Yes, sir. I used to coach it all.
Hey, me, tell your boys come get a car. Y'all come get a Hot Wheel. Y'all come get a Hot Wheel. Come on over here. Get you a Hot Wheel. Get you a Hot Wheel.
Okay. So back when,
Get you a Hot Wheel. You're welcome.
As a matter of fact,
You got that one, cool.
I was trying to avoid going to the and got out the water.
We have the same thing. He's
man, William Waters used to be principal.
I remember he was principal there.
He's my Colts fans. I watched the Colts games.
Hey, you go, man. Okay.
Something together.
We're shooting another podcast tomorrow, so I'll make sure I send it to you. Nice to meet you. Yeah, go ahead.
I can believe.
My name is Chief.
I'll send it to you.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, man.
All right, B. Tell Dr. Hayes I'll catch him next month.
Yeah.
All right now. You drove or Tamara come to get you? Okay. I'll be in touch with you. All right,
Take
bro.
care, good talking to you. Road Baptist, that's my church.
Oh, that's your, yeah, that's good. About an hour, I'll be cutting grass, man, cutting grass before the rain tomorrow. Yeah, before the rain comes tomorrow. I got that towards that. Mhm. William Jackson.
Okay, thanks everybody for watching. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
You tuning in, and what a great program of having fathers talk about their fathers and what they have learned from the experiences they have with their fathers. So we want to thank you, and please continue. You'll see more of this from the Printed Word Bookstore out here in Churchland, in the city of Portsmouth. And I guess when you were seeing the fathers talk, you could see that this is a full bookstore, and they have books from a long time ago. They have books that are more modern, and if you don't have it here, they can order it for you. So we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
Okay, ciao. Okay.
You gonna see me out the door? My man.
AJ, you get a car?